Hey guys, and welcome to a movie review on the South Korean film Parasite. This film came out in 2020 for UK audiences, I believe, and it won 4 Oscars and was the first foreign film to get Best Picture. Now, before I start the review, I just want to put a spoiler alert out there because if you haven't seen the film, this review will contain spoilers. So, if you want to watch the film without spoilers or go in blind, I highly recommend clicking off this video and coming back after you've seen the film. But there's your warning, I've warned you now, and now I'm going to get into the review. A quick summary of the plot of Parasite is that there are these two families. There's the Kim family, who are a working class family who barely make enough money to survive, and then there's the Park family, which are a really wealthy upper class family who have more than enough money to survive. One day, the son of the Kim family, Ki-woo, is given a rock which signifies wealth and success to the family. This is given to him by his friend Min-hyuk, who eventually offers him a job opportunity working for the Parks as an English tutor for their daughter, who is currently the student of Min-hyuk, but he's going away to study abroad. This basically leads to Ki-woo getting the job, and then he convinces the mother of the family of the Parks to hire his sister, but they use alternate names, so to the Park family, they don't know who each of them are. So they're complete strangers who are just working together, but in reality, they're a whole family. And this escalates that over time, the Kim family slowly replace the current employees of the Park family until the whole family is employed by the Parks. And at this point, they're all trusted, and it looks like they've got a good plan. They're getting a good source of income, and they don't need to necessarily lie about their real life situation because they've fooled the Park family into believing that they match their current personas. But this is all changed when the Park family decide to go away on a camping trip for the son of the Park family, Dae-sung's birthday. But this goes wrong as whilst the Parks are away, the Kim family decide to lavish in the Park family's house, and they get a knock at the door halfway through a thunderstorm, and it is the old housemaid asking to get something from the basement, which she forgot before she was relieved of her duties. And at first it seems like it's going to be okay. The mother of the Kim family allows it, and they plan on how to hide from the ex-maid. But after a bit of time, they discover that this is taking a bit longer than they'd hoped, so the Kim family persuade the mother to go and look what's going on, and that's when they discover that there's a secret bomb shelter that has been put in most wealthy houses in case of a North Korean attack on South Korea. That's what the film tells us anyway. And when the mother goes down there, she finds that not only is there a bunker, but there's also a man who has been living there, and it's the ex-maid's husband, who's been living there for 3 years, I think it is, and he has pretty much gone insane because he's had no outside experience. He pretty much worships the Park family for supporting him, especially Mr. Park, because he believes that he is the reason he is surviving, when in truth it's his wife who was, when she was employed, supplying him with food. And literally no one knew about this until this very moment. And after this, they get into a bit of a confrontation. The ex-maid is pleading for the Kim family not to alert the Park family, but then the Kim family all fall down the stairs, and the truth is out that they are both manipulating the Park family. And then the ex-maid decides to film them, and now basically has a sort of blackmail to ruin their careers just like they ruined theirs. And then it gets into a bit of a brawl, which leaves the ex-maid mortally wounded with her husband tied up in the bunker. And whilst this is happening, the Kim family go back upstairs, and then they get a call saying that the Park family are returning early because of the storm, so the camping trip was a disaster. This means that they have to rush to clear things up and hide from the Park family when they get back. And it's a pretty tense scene. They do eventually manage, though, to escape, and they head back to their house. But when they get there, this storm, which has been consistently shown on screen, has flooded their apartment completely, so they have nowhere to stay or to sleep, and they know they have to get back to work normally tomorrow. So they end up going to some communal shelter area, which has been set up to house people for a night whilst the storm is sorted out. And after this, they go back to work as normal, except their opinions of the parks have really changed because of what they overheard whilst they were hiding from the Park family the night before. And the Parks decide to have a birthday party on the same day as the passing of the flood, and they make some kind of ignorant remarks regarding how the weather was a blessing rather than a curse, I guess, which really annoys the Kim family, especially Kim Ki-taek, who doesn't take it well. He slowly but surely builds up this kind of rage against the Park family, especially Mr. Park, who he eventually kills, but we'll get onto that. And then during the birthday party, Kim Ki-woo decides to give a peace offering to the husband and the ex-maid in the shelter below. But as he goes down there, he discovers that the ex-maid is dead because she basically passed away from her injuries. And then the husband has gone insane pretty much, and he tries to kill Kim Ki-woo, and whilst Kim Ki-woo looks like he's going to escape, he ends up getting hit on the head by the rock that he was given, which he was going to give to the family below in the basement, but he ends up getting hit in the head twice by it, which everyone thought was his death, but it turns out that he actually survived, just had a lot of brain trauma where he had to recover in surgery for about 2 weeks afterwards. But anyway, after that scene, the husband of the ex-maid decides to go on a rampage and grabs a kitchen knife, and as no one really notices him, he stands in the background of the party while everyone's celebrating and the birthday cake is being delivered. He sees Park So-dam's character and chases after her and stabs her mortally in the chest, and she slowly bleeds out in the hands of her father as her mother and the father's wife kills the ex-husband. And whilst this is happening, Mr. Park is begging for Kim Ki-taek to give him the car keys just to get out of there and take his son, who had a traumatic seizure after trying to get his son to hospital, and does not have any regard for his employee who is bleeding out. And this really takes Kim Ki-taek to the edge, and he decides he's had enough of this. He grabs the same kitchen knife, I believe, and stabs Mr. Park in the back as he's leaving, which results in pretty much the end of the film as Kim Ki-taek flees the scene, and we think that he's just done a runner and he's now no longer existing, but it turns out he is now living in the bunker and is using Morse code to communicate with his son, who was a scout at one point, which allows him to be able to identify the Morse code, or at least learn how to read Morse code. And then he promises that he will free his father and buy the house, but that's an unrealistic aim really, because in Kim Ki-woo's position, that's probably unlikely to happen, and that's how the film ends. Don't think it needs a sequel, but that's the plot in a summary. So we'll get on to the review. So the film, in my opinion, I really enjoyed the film, and as the title will probably say, this is the only film I've gone to in the cinema that I've actually wanted to go and see again straight after that. Like, this film is phenomenal, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go see it. Even if you've watched this review and you know what it's about, it's still an amazing film and you'll be blown away. And if you're doubting going to the film because you have to watch subtitles, honestly, it doesn't matter. You barely notice the subtitles after about 10 minutes. Like, you just read them instinctively and you can still understand the film. Like, my Korean is not very good, but I could still understand the film just because of the subtitles. The subtitles do not limit your experience. Like, if that's your excuse to not go watch the film, then you're missing out, and you should just watch it. It doesn't matter. The subtitles don't make much of a difference, honestly. But there's so much I can talk about in comparison of what's good about this film compared to what's bad, because there's literally nothing bad in my opinion, which I'll get on to. There is one thing that I personally thought I didn't like, but we'll get on to that. So, the pros. The lighting of the film was perfect. Like, the dark, intense scenes were filmed in a dark manner, and it would progressively go from light to dark, slowly and naturally, and it would build up tension and make it even more suspenseful, which you want from a film. You want it to look natural and, I guess, keep you on the edge of your seat, as they would say. But this film did that perfectly, and the directing was amazing, so you've got to credit Bong Joon Ho for that. And the setting as well, the two different settings. So you had the lower class South Korea and the upper class South Korea, and they weren't overly exaggerated to the point where it was unbelievably unrealistic. I think they were perfectly aligned. You could see a clear difference between the lower class and the upper class, and it wasn't ridiculously portrayed, because the upper class weren't described to be completely stupid and ignorant to their own lives, even though they were in a way, but they weren't considered completely stupid, which is a win in my book if you want to look at believability of the film. And then the cast. So the cast, they all play their parts perfectly. I'll talk about a few individuals who I think were amazing, because there isn't really a lead character in this film. The lead characters, basically the families are all main characters. That's how it feels anyway, because they all intertwine and they all connect with one another, and it's believable. There's no like protagonist or antagonist. I don't think there is an evil character or a parasite in the actual film. There's just two groups of families, and it's portrayed like that, and it works perfectly. But honourable mentions, I have to go to Sung Kyung Lee's performance as Kim Ki-taek, or the father of the Kim family. He was phenomenal. His facial expression throughout the film, his development as a character was amazing. Like, at one point, he looks like he goes from respecting the wealthy family to hating them within about half an hour of the film, and it slowly, progressively goes up and up until it gets to the point where he murders the father of the Park family, which I think he was phenomenal throughout the film. His facial expression, his dialogue, his portrayal of the dialogue, it was amazing, and honestly I've got to give massive credit to him. And then also Kim Ki-woo, I guess he was so like humble despite being the first one to work there. Like, even in his final moments, even before he was put into a coma, I think, or had some kind of brain damage by the husband of the old maid, he still offered like remorse. Like, he had that remorse for the family below. He wanted to offer them a peace gathering, which he was given when he was in a tough state. Even though it didn't pan out for that, it showed that he was just a humble guy, and his portrayal by Woo Shik Choi was again phenomenal. The whole Kim family are pretty much phenomenal, but it's important to also note that Park So-dam's performance as Kim Ki-young, or the daughter of the Kim family, she was also probably she was probably the best performance in the whole film, and I'm not sure she won an Oscar for best female performance, but she should have. She was phenomenal, and obviously you've probably seen the iconic scene where she does a little finger chant before going into the interview, but that's just one of the perfect scenes she films. She was honestly phenomenal, so not much more I can say about her. And then coming to the Park family, personally, I think the son was actually performed really well. He wasn't unrealistic for a child in a wealthy family. He had attributes of a child, like any child. Even though he was wealthy, he didn't look like a wealthy child. He was just a child, and even though he had barely any dialogue, his performance mirrored that of a child. He was realistic, which is what makes this film so good. It's a realistic film. It doesn't have its plot isn't ridiculous, and the cast portray this plot perfectly, in my opinion. As well, the mother of the Park family, played by Yo Jong Jo, also, even though she was rich and wealthy and was pretty much just a housewife, she still had some kind of knowledge. Even though she seemed kind of dumb at points and was very gullible, she still seemed like an actual person. Like, she wasn't just a typical rich person. Like, she was portrayed in such a good way in the film, and honestly the whole cast is amazing. But I have to give a special mention to Gunse, or the old maid's husband. He was terrifying. Like, honestly, in a good way, he was a terrifying individual throughout the film. Like, this film isn't a horror film, but he scared me. Like, when I left the cinema, he was the person that was on my mind. As like, that guy was perfectly portrayed in the scene. Like, the mise-en-scène and the lighting and that camera angles, everything to do with him in the film was perfect. Like, he was, I don't even know if he was intended to be scary, but he was portrayed as scary. Like, his final manic scene as well just summed up his his facial expression throughout the film just mirrored this guy who'd gone through insanity of not seeing sunlight for 3 years. It was perfect, and I have to give credit to him. Even though he's a minor character, I guess you could say, his insane run at the end, his insane mindset just worked perfectly throughout the film. So, what else? The build up in tense scenes was also slow, but not too slow that it dragged on. It actually created such a good amount of suspense and was, for the most part, projected perfectly. And there's not much more I can say about it. It was phenomenal. And the narrative, again, the plot itself is a really, I guess it's a kind of generic plot. It's been used before, but the narrative and how it was performed was amazing. Like, it was portrayed in such a good, realistic manner, as I've stated before, and it made it feel like you were part of the Kim family, like you were experiencing it as they were. Like, the twist caught you as off guard as the characters. It was portrayed amazingly by the directing and whoever wrote the actual dialogue. It was amazing. But there's also humour. In such a dark and topical film, they managed to have such a good level of humour that it wasn't stupid and it wasn't too subtle. Like, the humour was there, and even though it's a pretty dark tone, the whole film, and it spreads a pretty dark message, the humour worked. It made it entertaining, I guess. It kept the entertainment level consistent because there's so many random jokes here and there, like the old housemaid and her husband joking about being North Korean leaders and keeping the Kim family as hostages at one point. It was funny, and it had a serious tone, but it kept its humour. And what more can I say? The soundtrack as well. The soundtrack was perfect. It didn't seem out of place at all. It was great, and there's not much I can say about the soundtrack apart from that it fitted the scene perfectly. And that's pretty much it, I think. I mean, there's so much good about this film. Like, the feelings of the characters felt like real people. That's the most important part, which makes this film so goddamn good, and why you should watch this. This film feels so realistic. It feels believable. It's the portrayal of the feelings of the characters makes them actually look like real people in a real environment. It's amazing. I don't know. There's only one real negative I have, and this is subjective to me personally. I didn't like how it ended in the party scene. The party scene seemed a bit too rushed. Well, not rushed, but it could have been built up more like the rest of the film. It came as it almost felt like it didn't fit, I guess. It just happened, and it kind of left you feeling like, really? Did it have to end that way? But that doesn't take away the part that the whole film was a masterpiece. And honestly, that's all I can really say. This film is a masterpiece. If I had to rate this out of 10, I would probably give it a 9.5 out of 10. This film, barring my own opinion of the party scene, it's a theatrical masterpiece. There's really nothing else I can say. So go watch Parasite if you haven't seen it already. I think it's still in cinemas when this video goes up. But if not, buy it on DVD. Go see it somehow. Just watch this film. This film deserves your attention. And I know people will be like, but subtitles, I don't know, I can't deal with subtitles. Honestly, the subtitles do not matter. If anything, they help you understand the film even more. So just go watch this film. And as I said earlier, this is the only film that's ever made me want to go watch it again in the cinema. So, Parasite. Great film, go watch it. If you did enjoy this video, like and subscribe down below. And let me know what other films you want me to review or talk about, because I can do this again. I don't mind, it's entertaining. And yeah, if you have any opinions of Parasite, leave them down below, ask me some questions, and I'll give you my opinions about it, because I've probably missed some stuff. And I'm sorry again for probably butchering half the names and making it complicated. But this is my first time reviewing a film. But if you did enjoy, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.